In this video, we are going to cover process point and data entries and how to configure them in GraphWorx 64. You can find them in the Dynamics ribbon under Text Objects section. A process point is a text object that you can associate a data source to and display dynamic or static value in a GraphWorx 64 display. By default, a process point is a read-only object. It's commonly used to display OPC, UA data tags, asset work properties, hyperhistorian tags, or any data points coming into the iconic systems via supported protocol. A data entry object displays information like a process point, but allows the user to write to the data source during runtime. You can use a data entry object in GraphWorx display to change a state, assign a value to a variable, or make a selection that controls a process, changes other object, or provide other forms of user-generated input, depending on how you configure the object. The third text object is the time-date object, which displays the time and date. The time-date object's properties are similar to the previous two and can be configured to be a time-date picker. In order to have a better understanding of how the text objects work, we're going to use an example to help demonstrate. First, on the Dynamics ribbon under Text Objects section, click on Process Point and drag a rectangle box somewhere on the canvas, and the same as Data Entry. Lastly, click on Time Date Object and drag a rectangle on the right of the Data Entry box. For the purpose of practicing, we're going to use a predefined equipment property, and first we will configure the property by going into Workbench, expand the assets and then the equipment provider. You will see all the predefined sample equipment. Expand the water treatment assets tree and go to Foxborough Life Stations, Life Station 1 level. Double-click to add it. Under Real-Time Data tab, open the data browser and add Data Connectivity, OPC Data Access, Simulations, Double, Static Value to Real-Time Data tag. Make sure to check the box for Use Data Cache and click Apply to save all the changes. Now we will go back to GraphWorx. Go to the Property tabs of the Process Point object. Under Data Source, click on the ellipse button to add My Computer Assets, Water Treatment, Foxborough Life Stations, Life Station 1 level. You can also customize the data display format under Format property, such as adding the unit of the data by using prefix or postfix label. You can also set the state field property to be true and use the text object as a state indicator. Suppose there were two states for the data, on and off, then that makes it a Boolean assignment and the text object will indicate the states as you define. Now we will go into runtime. The numbers shown in the process point and data entry should be consistent. And if I click on the process point on the left and try to change the input, nothing will happen. Whereas if I click on the data entry on the right, the data will be overwritten, which can be further confirmed by the change of number in the process point. And the default time date text object is simply showing the current time right now. Now let's go back to configuration mode and change it into a time date picker. Under the Property tab for the text object, we will first add a data source. Go to Local Simulation and add a new variable. Make sure that the data type is set to be string. Then we will change the data entry property to be true. Notice that there is now an option called Picker. When Picker is set to be true, you will be able to select the time date object in runtime and be provided with a calendar and the time picker. The picker can be configured to show the date or just the time based on the Dynamics time date mode property. If the Dynamics custom time format include milliseconds, the picker will have an option to enter milliseconds. We will go with default setup for the picker, and we go into runtime. Notice that the original time text is now blank. Click on the space and time data picker will show up to allow you to pick the time and date. Press enter on the keyboard to confirm.